Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast. Thanks for joining us on the chat, and with me, as usual, the usual suspects. I have Peter J. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad. And Maggot, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, doing well, thanks, Fiend.
Very good. And Donkey, how are you, mate? Got through the chips all right?
Yeah, no, there's no chips tonight. Mrs. has put me on a diet. It's just water and happy feelings.
Yeah, okay. As I said, g'day to J Mac and DSG and others on the chat. Let's get straight into Crows news, shall we? Rightio.
I think what got most tongues wagging, certainly South Australian tongues wagging through the week, was the final of the Under-18s football carnival. The South Australia versus Vic Metro game. I saw the first quarter and I saw the Isaac Rankin game. Of course, in the end, we ran out pretty comfortable winners, but it certainly set tongues wagging in terms of the draft, which I think quite clearly now we're going to be a major player in this year's draft, and it was certainly good to see a number of South Australian names starring in that game. Did anybody else happen to catch it?
I did watch it with great interest, and Pete, you described it beautifully. It was Rankin was a joy to watch, and I'm sure that there's others that caught your eye too. Hately caught mine as well. I really like the look of him.
Yeah, certainly he certainly caught mine for sure.
But and the captain Valenti, he's didn't know that apparently wasn't his best game, but he looks like he's got plenty of ability. And is his bloke called Cheney? Is it?
There was Connor Rosie who sort of worked his way into the game. Ended up being quite a solid performance from him, although he didn't sort of start with a bang like Rankin did. He sort of worked himself into the game, and so of the big four that we normally talk about, they all pretty much form.
Well, the microphone's gone a bit funny there, Pete.
Sorry, Lukosius was good. Rankin sort of was spectacular, and then of course Haitley and Rosie just worked into the game and were really solid contributors.
Yep. As I said, was Kenley. That was the other one that caught my eye. I think he's playing on the wing, and he's a real goer, and he used the ball pretty well as well, isn't he? And so really, if Lukosius didn't have a great game actually, he kicked one goal, and it was a very, very clever goal too. The interesting thing is whether Rankin's promoted himself too far up now. That's the only thing that I am a little bit concerned about.
Fiend, the list manager, what do you think?
Look, I guess it ties into the news coming out this evening about Sloaney maybe re-signing, which we should all be really happy about, but it actually, in terms of the current conversation, it probably isn't going to help matters. I reckon, I still think Lukosius will go number one. I think Rankin will probably go after the Suns pick. So what's that? Probably 4, 5, 6. We could get Rankin. I don't think we'll get Lukosius unless we get really bold with our draft picks, or we happen to lose someone like Mitch McGovern, which gives us a little bit more currency. But as it stands, with Sloaney looking to re-sign, that takes one, maybe two picks out of the equation, which is going to make it really hard, I think.
The guys that could go even before Lukosius, the Victorian midfielder, is it Walsh is his name?
He'll go two, I reckon, Macca.
Well, Victorians love to promote their own, so there's every chance he might.
King as well was the other one they're talking about. The big key forward lad from Victoria, Vic Metro.
What name was that one, Pete?
King.
Yeah, yes. He looked all right too. And there's twins. There's two of them, isn't there?
Yeah, the two twins. Oh, the twins are going to end up at Gold Coast, I'd imagine.
As opposed to the three twins, or
Yeah, I know. It's like saying ATM machine. ATM machine. I know. Yeah.
Redundant too. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So just taking that one step further, Fiend, what you were just saying is, and I haven't seen any news tonight. Has there been any reports about Sloaney? Has there?
Yeah, drums are beating.
Yeah, Theo's come out and said that he's close to re-signing. Blah blah blah. It's hard. There was no new information as such. It was just a report saying that he's close to re-signing, and they did a little bit of a 5-second chat with him, and he was very positive. So all signs point to him staying, I think.
You sound excited.
Oh well, I love him. I love him. He's a fantastic player.
But we've got this chance to rebuild. And look, I know exactly what you're saying. I felt the same when Lynch re-signed. I thought, terrific, good player. All Australian last year, squad last year, all that good stuff. But I couldn't help just thinking, that's a potential first rounder just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still on the other side of the fence in this. I don't think our list is terrible. I think that we need to reload and have another crack, and I think keeping players like Lynch and Sloan are integral to that. So I do see a lot of opportunity at the top of the draft, and I still think we've got a lot of pieces to move. So I don't think we need to have the absolute dearth of them that everyone thinks.
No, there's one thing I'm pretty positive about is that no matter who we choose, we will get some very good players, because they're in the top. I don't know, they're talking top 20, but even if you took the top dozen to 14 players, there's going to be some very, very good players in there. And I do think we have got pretty good recruiting staff, so I would think that they will pick very well. If we're by choice, you get the South Australian lads, there's no doubt about that, because you remove the go-home factor, but we may not even get that choice. But given the fact that we could only have two, to me, I concede we won't get Lukosius. But if we could get two, I'd be very, very happy if we got Rankin and Haitley.
Well, it looks at the moment like we're going to have 7, 12 and 19. 2 inside and 1 just outside first round. You'd imagine that there'd be a South Australian lad there ready to go at least number 7, and you'd probably think number 12 as well. But I tell you what, I guess my flatness about the whole thing is because I don't share your optimism about the list, Donkey. I think that our list is done, and yes, you can't cut a swathe through your list and decimate it, because you will bottom out and potentially not have enough experience at the club to bring the new kids through. But we've got a couple of experienced blokes there. We've got Richard Douglas, who's just signed back on. We've got Matty Crouch, who's got tons of experience now. We've got Talia, and in defence, we've got Bryce Gibbs. Good point, Peter. I love Rory Sloane as a player, and I'd love to see him be a one-club player with the Adelaide Crows. But the reality of the situation is this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the Adelaide Footy Club to rebuild their list with quality South Australian players, and to me, it's a no-brainer. I'd be doing it every day of the week, trying to get as far up the draft and as many picks as possible to stock up with this South Australian talent. But it looks like, with the signing of Lynch and Douglas and possibly Sloaney, it looks like we're just going to go steady as she goes, which is a bit of a shame. I think we talked about it, Macca, briefly on Sunday night. I'd be shipping Jenkins off to Gold Coast.
Yep, certainly would if you get the good pick. I'd certainly do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's still whispers about McGovern, and he'd definitely definitely give us some currency, and perhaps we can pull something off with keeping Sloaney if Gov decides to go. But I don't know. The signs from the club seem to be, steady as she goes, and I think that's a real disappointment.
Yeah, because if Sloaney did go, he'd definitely be a first rounder. And if, say, for example, we pick 7, we get the pick following that. So back at 7 and 8. and then you've got something to work with to trade up a little bit to have a crack at a Rankin.
Got the 2019 first as well, don't forget. I would imagine that will come into play because they know how important this draft is. So if you put our natural first, Melbourne's first, our 2019 first, that's three. A club might look at our 2019 first and think, they've got a bit to do. It might be a reasonable first. It might turn out to be. So that's 3 first rounders, as well as 19. So, if you throw, as you say, even if it's just McGovern into that mix, then you're starting to, then you're looking at 4 first round picks. And so they should be able to make something out of that. And even if it is players of the calibre of Hakely, who I thought was terrific on the weekend, and Rozier, who I thought was terrific as well. Tough, Rozier, tough, hard running kind of player, and Hakely,
he's a tall, big-bodied midfielder.
He is, and I'm not quite sure how you describe him. He just seemed to be a very, very no-fuss, go about your business, good decision maker, just get the ball onto the next person with the right decision, and just really liked the way he played.
Probably not quite the type of player we need. If you're going to be really critical.
He's a type we haven't got.
Oh, we've got a few distributors, Macca. What we need is pace.
Well, he's not slow.
No, he's not slow, but he's like normal pace. We need some real speed.
Oh, look, Rankin is the perfect one for what we need. But
Rosie's a good hard-running player as well.
But Rankin, he was bouncing the ball, running away from them. I mean, he is quick.
But it was certainly great to get a look at those kids. Probably just moving that step forward. The other bit of news that's around this week, of course, is just we continue to cop injuries. Richard Douglas out for a couple of weeks, I think, 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep.
Daniel Talia in doubt.
Talia, they reckon will play.
Yeah, seemed a bit coy from what I saw, but if you've got some good information, then well and good. Hope he plays.
It's off the website.
And they're talking about the potential for Eddie Betts to be available to come back in, maybe to replace Dougie. But
I can't see Eddie coming back up for a Thursday night game. Can you guys? It's been 2 weeks?
I wouldn't have thought so.
So it seems very short to me.
It's usually rule of thumb 3 weeks, and because he's redone it, I would have thought they'd be cautious.
Before the bye?
They were talking 4 weeks initially.
It was before the bye, wasn't it? This would be his 3rd week out.
Yeah, but short week, Donkey. It's not a Saturday game, it's a Thursday game.
Okay, well, he did it on a Wednesday, so does that help?
Maybe. I don't know.
Or Tuesday, he did it Tuesday night, remember? After the terrible email, or the email from Fags, then we were basically on the show when it came out.
Yeah. Well, that's when it was announced, so it was the game before that, so...
Yeah, so it's 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, time will tell, I guess.
Certainly can't cut a break. And if it's not the the awareness type injuries, it's impact kind of or in-game injuries such as the one that Douglas received on Friday night, and can't cut a break.
Yeah, still 8 first 22 players on our injury list: Talia, Betts, Ellis Yeoman, McGovern, Douglas, Brodie Smith, Brad Crouch.
Yep.
It's hard to win games of footy at the best of times with those players out. But given that we're so bereft of form at the moment as well, we look we just look at a shadow of last year's team. It's quite unbelievable.
Yeah, Phoenix and I were talking. Interested what you think, Pete. We were, and Donkey, we were sort of saying not absolutely tanked, but any player that has got injury, make sure they have the appropriate rest, or if they're going to need an operation at the end of the season, send them off for it now, because we aren't going to make the 8. And the point is, there's not much point in winning another 3 or 4 games and putting ourselves into a worse position in the draft. So it's basically, play fit players and which might mean that is not your very best side, and which means you probably won't win. And
you don't have to refer to it as tanking. It's just simply 2019 preparation. I think is really all you need to refer to it as. Just getting in the best possible shape for 2019.
Would you do that too? I mean, that's what we think should be done.
Oh, I absolutely would do that. I don't think that would come as any surprise to anyone. I said on social media through the week, I really genuinely believe that this playing group is to be commended. I think that it's got an incredible amount out of itself when you consider the lack of top, 10 draft talent that list has. It's been cobbled together with a lot of smart recruiting at the rookie stage, smart trading, and it's been given the trauma that we went through with loss of draft picks, it's been incredibly well put together, that list, and I think it has got all that it can out of itself by playing good systemic football. But I think that it lacks the real footballing talent that you need to get over the line in a grand final, and I genuinely don't think that list has a premiership in it. And I think that now's the time to concede that and to look to do our best to add top end talent so that we can rejig. And other teams are showing, like Hawthorn are showing that you do not have to bottom out at all. You can remain a competitive outfit, always shooting for finals, but still just reload and add talent as you can with a bit of free agency and a little bit of trading and some real top end draft talent. It needs to happen. And as I said, all respect to the playing group, but it is not. Excuse me, it's not going to win a flag.
Well, certainly not with what we've got at the moment. There's not a chance in hell. I have to say that the last premiership we won was in 1998. That's 20 years ago.
Mm.
So, and in that particular time, I think you'd have to say that 2006 was a window of opportunity.
05, 06, yeah.
Yep, and we managed to root that up, pardon the language. But then last year and this year are probably windows of opportunity, and we managed to do it again. This club has got a marvellous ability when it is sitting in a situation where it's got the opportunity to win a flag, that it doesn't do it. And
there's a minor premiership in 2012 as well. I don't
know that 2012 was a real chance though. Even though I think we had a soft draw and we were playing out of our skins for
2012.
We didn't even make a grand final. Come on, we finished
from top spot.
From top spot, we didn't even make a grand final with home finals. I mean, come on, that's a choke. That's a
if
choke.
You look at the season.
I know we had an easier draw, a softer draw, and certain cards fell in place. But I tell you what, if you don't make a grand final from top spot, it's a failure. It's a choke. It's a dead set choke.
It was a choke. No doubt about it. It was a choke. And the point that I was really making is that the club has really got to sit down and it's got to look at where is it going wrong and what does it have to do to be a genuine, tough, hard club that's going somewhere.
Well,
and
I'll go a step back. Sorry to interrupt, Macca, but I'll go a step backwards from that and say the club needs to work out whether it's in the business of being financially successful or whether it's in the business of winning premierships.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
No, you can walk and chew gum.
Oh, come on. Look, this whole competitive in perpetuity is designed to keep bums on seats, crows in the papers, people living in hope, it's not designed to win flags. And I would suggest that part of the reason why we caved in on during those windows that you guys mentioned just before is because we lacked that little bit of additional class, particularly in 2012. Mm-hmm. And even last year, to a degree, we were a very workmanlike team without a huge amount of class. And part of the reason we didn't have the class is because we always finish in and around the 8. So, I reckon we're about the only squad in the whole competition that doesn't have a top 10 pick running around. And it's been like that for ages that we haven't had. The last top 10 pick we had was Dangerfield. The club needs... I don't think you can be... I mean, the club can still be financially successful, but is that its primary focus? Or is that an outcome of being ruthless in terms of pursuing premierships? Because I don't believe that our club is ruthless when it comes to managing our football department.
I agree. That's where I'm going to.
Yeah, I know, but I think like Andrew Fagan is obviously a very good operator when it comes to making the Crows financially viable. I mean, some of the strategies that he's put in place to gain extra revenue outside of the traditional revenue base has been fantastic. But that's his job. But we've had a couple of blokes in our footy department over the last 10 years that I think you couldn't argue have not got their have either not got the right resources or not got the backing of the board to be ruthless enough to build a premiership winning squad.
Well, I'm totally agreeing with you. That's my whole point. During the week, 5AA, they asked a question for people to ring up and say, what do they think? If you could have one wish, what would you change? And you could change something in the Crows. What would you change? I rang up and I got a fair hearing, and my point was that we have $10 million worth of assets in those players, and if you had assets worth $10 million that somebody damaged and destroyed, you would not keep those people on. And basically, there's no doubt that the people that are responsible for that are Burton and Haas, and that they should go. And I did get the award. I got the $50 Powell's liquor voucher.
You're putting that into the CrowCast end-of-year function basket, Maker?
I'm probably rolling it down my stomach, actually. But
it's mandatory. It's mandatory. I thought that's what...
Yeah. But
did you declare your commercial arrangements with the CrowCast?
But and I mean, David Wilder just gave it to me spot on, bang, straight away. And then talking afterwards, and Bickley said that he can't see any changes being made to the assistant coaches, but if there are any changes, it would have to be made into that fitness area, into Burton's area. So, but
I think
I'd like to see a review of the whole club.
Yeah, I think it goes deeper, Macca, because I think there's been a disconnect for some time between our coaching staff or our footy operations and our list management, because on the one hand you've got the club trying to gain an edge by employing third party proprietors, and let's not go into the veracity or otherwise of collective minds, but Pikey's obviously intent on trying to find an edge through various means, mind training and new fitness things and all the rest of it. So they're obviously within their means, they're trying to find an edge. And yet you couldn't say, I think, with any confidence that our list management strategy has been similarly focused. There's been a few opportunities missed over the time. We had the opportunity to get rid of Tippett to Brisbane before the shit hit the fan the year after on that one. We had the opportunity to get rid of JJ, or not get rid of him, but transfer him to Brisbane a couple of years ago, and we ended up re-signing him on a long-term deal. That's not knocks on those players, but I think not doing those deals has ignored the realities of our squad, and I don't know whether our club has actually been capable of being really objective about analysing and assessing the strength of our squad, because I think, you know, it does become a bit matey down there, and a bit just lacking that edge, and
no, still a bit of boys' club in it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in, sort of thing. So, and then you have a look at our assistant coaching panel, which is by far the weakest of any of the. If you want to just have a look at the top 8 teams, by far the weakest coaching panel.
I thought we lost 2 very, very good assistant coaches and replaced them with blokes that are not of the equal talent.
Well, we replaced them out of convenience. Brett Burton was employed out of convenience. Ben Hart was employed out of convenience. So, I mean, Josh Franco, I think, was a good appointment. But we've had bloody Ryan O'Keefe sitting there doing sweet FA for the last couple of years. We've got Tate Kazler as our defensive coordinator or something or other. He's the ex-AFL team coach. I mean, these are all very tepid appointments, and they're not the appointments of a ruthless, success-hungry club, in my opinion.
Well, you know, the big fella used to coach Norwood, Barmy. He was on 5AA the other day, and he and Burton actually hold equivalent positions. Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Barm has been a coach. He's held every position. He's gone right through the middle. He's been in various clubs. He knows what's going on. And we've got this dickhead as Burton as ours. And really, he's had a gymnasium, and that's about it. And I just can't see how could he possibly be the football director, which is that oversees list management, trading, salary, the whole lot. How could that dickhead be there?
Well, not only that, we lost our strategy advisor to Westfold, Essendon, and we've looked a little bit bereft on that score as well since he's left. I think he actually was in a relationship with Katrina Gill, who was our website or our social media coordinator or something, and she left. I'm not sure, but anyway, we've lost a lot, and the appointments. I mean, putting aside everyone's personal views on Brett Burton, that appointment can only mean one of 2 things, in my opinion. Either the club doesn't value that position, or that position, in terms of the club structure, is merely a conduit. It's not. There's no. There's no license to innovate or to be ruthless or to be. What's the word I'm looking for? Aggressive in terms of managing the football operations. It seems to me as if it's almost like a placeholder position, because surely Brett Burton isn't qualified to do that role, as you said, Macca. So, but that means that role isn't important in our club structure, in my view, or else the club's not serious.
Well, Fagan said that they combed Australia. They combed Australia looking for the best man in Australia for the job. And there he was, sitting right underneath their nose. For fuck's sake, does he think we're idiots?
You're going to have to put that little badge on the thing now again, Feen.
Oh, it's just perpetually on there, mate, because I know Macca can't bloody help himself.
Can't control himself.
No.
He's a fucking disgrace.
He's just an angry man. I mean, it's a very good discussion, Macca, and I agree with you. And I think we're pushing the same barrow, but I think it goes deeper than just sacking Burton and Haas. I think it goes to the actual heart and the culture of the club, as to whether the club sees itself first and foremost as an aggressive powerhouse club that is there to win flags, or is the club, or has the club just got to a point where the corporate side of the operations is more important, or takes more importance at the boardroom level than on-field performance, and on-field performance only becomes an issue when it starts hitting the bottom line.
Well, let's do the maths. 20 years since we've won a flag, we're not going to win another flag. We're not going to win a flag this year. Well, in that 20 years, there hasn't been 18 teams all that time. There's been 16 and 17 and 18 type situation. So if you average it out to 17, We are below average. We're below par. We can't even get. We are a failure. We're an absolute failure.
But the positive, Donkey, the positive in all of this is that a club like Richmond, who are a basket case for so many years, have shown that it doesn't take a lot to turn it around.
Well, what it takes is an appointment of Neil Baum.
It takes some good appointments and to get some class, get a little bit of class on the field into the club, I think, and I reckon that we could turn that around reasonably quickly.
Only if you do the right things, Pete. Only if you do the right things.
Correct.
One of my greatest achievements, I went to a business that was losing $2 million a year, and when I left, it was making $6 million a year. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a miracle worker. All I did was put all the right things into place. They were doing everything wrong. They had the wrong.
Can you come and spend some time at my house?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I've got a spreadsheet I want to show you, Macca, entitled My Home Budget.
Well, really, it's just putting and you spend a lot of time putting the right people in the right spot, doing the right things, and it's as simple as that. And when you've got the wrong people, and they will cost you dearly. And Burton. When I say cost you dearly, in the football world, it costs you in terms of performance, and performance then translates to all the rest of it. It's just a mess. It really is a mess.
Yeah. In terms of sort of Phoenix's statement about whether and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, so you'll probably tell me off, but in terms of Phoenix's statement about whether, the corporate side of the Crows is sort of overriding what the list management would do in terms of the way we'd sort of try and set that up or the way it works. I don't know that it's about the money side of the thing. I think it's just I think we just have a really risk-averse culture at the club, and that permeates through so many different things that we do. Like, if we have a look at our logos and colour schemes, they're designed for kids and things like that, and we don't really pick those sort of massive X-factor players. We go for the stock standard. When we had players like Van Berlo and Vince and McKay running around, no one could tell the difference between the three of them because they were just all 5'10", blonde midfielders. All those sorts of things, and it looked like we were a very vanilla, risk-averse club, and we're not sort of having a serious crack at it. I don't know that means that they're we've got people in the boardroom sitting there going, well, it's better to go eighth than never win a flag. But I think the risk aversion problem is the big problem with it. The other problem I see is whether Camporelli, Clark, and some of the other guys were decent assistant coaches at some point. I think the point is now they've been there too long anyway, and for a club to breed and survive and to innovate and to find the new ways to do things right, they're not going to do that if they haven't seen the outside of those walls in the coaching environment for a long time. You just can't. There's no ability to innovate. It just becomes inbred, and that's what the problem is. I
think it's a really good point, Donkey, and I think it goes beyond whether Campo and Clarkey are good coaches. It's just good practice to turn over your management. Like, corporate world would not have line managers in the same roles managing the same people for such a long period of time, because you're right, it gets stale. There's innovation goes out the window. People need new voices, new ideas to keep them up and keep them motivated. And I think you're right. It's not you can say what you like about those two gentlemen, but irrespective of their ability to coach, it just doesn't make any sense that you would keep those people in those roles for such a long period of time.
No, because if the old saying is, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. So, yeah. And that's exactly what we're getting.
There's only one argument for keeping them for that long, and that is that we've just won 10 premierships in a row. And as Peter J says, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. And
I love you for that, mate. I love it.
We just haven't had very good pudding. And if you have a look at people like Burton, you can see from pretty early on that it's just a little bit soggy in the middle.
Well, look, we could go. Is there any other news? Because this is a fantastic
No, I
conversation.
think we should move on.
Yeah, a couple of other things just before we do move on. Worsfold is the latest Victorian coach to go to City Hall to complain about umpiring. So I expect to see Essendon get about 400 free kicks over the next couple of weeks.
They did get. Oh, they got crucified in the last game that I watched.
Yeah, I know, but why does it take a bloody coach to go to the what's going on? Honestly,
so really, can I just have a little bit of a hobby horse say here? It really, really frustrates me and annoys the hell out of me that I believe 90% of the umpiring problems that we have in our game is because, unlike any other game, we elevate umpires to personality status. We have somehow arrived at a point where they are considered to be as much as part of the game as what the players are. So when they go out there, they perform. They're expected to perform. And they do. They impact the game. They influence the game. They draw attention to themselves. They just, there's 4 of them now. They're on radio. They're on TV. It is ridiculous. There is no, that I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's no other officiating in the world that has in a professional sport that has the kind of personality status that these guys get. With the whole mic up thing, with the calling players by their first name, by this whole thing of them being part of the game is ridiculous. And this is what's causing the great percentage of the problem.
Well, very hard to argue. Once we used just to call them all, in general, white maggots. Now they've got names and numbers and all the rest of it.
Completely agree with you, Peter. In all the officiating I've done, the first rule of officiating is if the players don't remember that you're on the ground, then you've done your job.
Exactly.
And the only other thing, there is a few instances of mic'd up umpires, but and Billy Bowden will say hello. But I think towards the early 2000s, the NBA got really into the personalities of who the referees were, and there were some pretty suspect series that sort of happened down there. But the Lakers won, so I'm happy.
I think again, there's an underlying issue here, and I think it's that the AFL, in their efforts to try and make umpiring more attractive as a pursuit, as an occupation, that's resulted in them trying to give the umpires some sort of profile. And I think again, it's going about things the wrong way, because essentially they've made it so difficult for the umpires to umpire the game, because they've, again, Macca and I were talking on, and Nikki were talking on Sunday night. Umpiring now, to my way of thinking, is about managing the look of the game. It's not actually about officiating the rules. And if umpires were just allowed to officiate the rules, irrespective of the look of the game, then it would be a far more consistent pursuit for them to execute, because the rules are the rules are the rules. But when you're asking them to interpret in order to preserve the look of the game and make it a good product and all this sort of stuff, the umpire shouldn't be responsible for that.
100%.
And yet they are. It seems to me that the umpiring department is managed in such a way that they are the custodians of the product, if you know what I mean. And the AFL seem to do things the wrong way around, because now we've got the situation where, because they don't pay the first free in congestion, because they don't pay free kicks that some people might call soft in congestion, like pushes in the back or incorrect disposal or whatever, the game congests because they're allowing the ball to flow for longer periods, which allows more players to get around it. And then they come up with stupid things like zoning to try and offset that. Whereas if they actually went back to the cause, did a bit of root cause analysis, Macca, then they would very quickly come to realise that just officiating the rules would not only make the umpire's role easier, but it would also then, address some of the issues that they've got now. And I'm with you, Pete, but I also think it's... I don't necessarily think it's the umpire's fault per se. I think it's, again, the way they're managed by AFL House.
all these interpretations, etc. Like Bickley was talking about this during the week, even about the number of frees and the fact that they, for some reason, they want to keep the number of frees down. And he quoted some particular game, which I can't remember which one it was, but is regarded as one of the best games of all time. And he said people never ever commented that there were 90-odd frees in the game. And he said because the game was that good to watch. And he said that's one of the problems now. They don't pay enough frees. We're not talking about like Tiggy Touchwoods and all the rest of it, but there are blatant frees not paid.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Macca. And to pick up on a point Phoenix sort of said, it's especially the frees around some of the congested stuff and around the stoppages. So they'll play a light brush in the back in the forward half as soon as anyone goes near a back, but you can have a tagger holding Rory Sloane's wrist and have his arm around his body, and that's okay at the start of a clearance. And the problem starts. I think the problem starts at the stoppages. If you're not policing that properly, then you're not policing the rest of it properly. And you have to blow, 150 free kicks in a game. So be it. It's just about making sure no one gets an advantage by cheating, and it should be as simple as that.
Well, and you can preserve the flow of the game by officiating decisively and cutting out the time wasting in between. So, I mean, you pay a free, the guy gets back on the mark, it's play on. You don't mess around. The stoppages and the stop-start nature and the congestion of the game is compounded by the amount of time it takes for free kicks to be taken. The stupid 50-metre rule, which slows the game right down and makes the guy that's got the free, jog down 50 metres, and meanwhile every player on the ground and half the crowd are behind the ball and ready to clog it right up. I mean, there's just these stupid things that are so easily fixed, and yet what the AFL does is compound the problem by making another rule to fix the rule that they stuffed up in the first place. And it's not about complaining about umpires, because I don't, like someone in the chat said, if we were 15-2 we wouldn't be worrying about it. Well, I don't actually think that's true, because now we're looking at situations like the anti-density laws, and all this kerfuffle about bloody...
I love that term. Who else but the AFL could think of
bloody ridiculous,
anti-density laws? I mean, Jesus.
We're actually now bloody messing with the fabric of the game.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's the first I've heard that.
It was in the under 18, mate. It's called because I was reading where
it's a nice way of saying zoning.
Luco was saying how tough it was because him and Rankin are playing SANFL, and just playing normal footy, and they've got to go in, and they had to get used to the anti-density laws that they had in place in the under 18s. Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anti-density laws. Spare me.
45 minutes on that is probably going to be enough. So let's move on to talking about the game.
Right, I think it was intentional that we spent so much time on the news, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that we didn't have to spend much time on this.
Well, certainly talking about the bloody... Donkey, mute yourself, mate. Jesus.
The only shout out I love it. It's the only shout out I've really got for that game is I was incredibly impressed with Cheney in that game. I think there's no bigger pressure test than Richmond at the MCG on a Friday night, and massive pressure team, and everybody looked hurried, everybody looked rushed. I thought he was one player that looked calm, he was clean, his decision making was excellent, and his disposal was first class. So a really big tick for Cheney on the weekend, I thought.
I'm actually glad he's back in the team, and I'd have him in if you had to make a choice. I reckon I'd have him in every day of the week before Jake Kelly at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought
he was terrific.
He did very well. Yeah,
and Tom Duday, of course, was outstanding. I actually thought our defence was pretty good.
Yep, Tali was good too.
I thought they held up pretty well, and given the amount of ball that was going in there, and given the pressure that they were under, I thought they did terrifically well, and it was they were largely responsible for us only being 16 points down at three-quarter time. It's hard to imagine that we're only 16 points down at three-quarter time, but we were.
It's incredible.
It felt like we were 116 points down, but I thought that was largely on the back of a really, really solid defensive effort. So I think that that'd be commended. As I said, some of Cheney's decision making, he looked like he was the only player out there that was sort of unhurried and not rushed. But unfortunately, same couldn't be said for the midfield and the front half, who I thought were diabolical, particularly the front half. They were just awful.
Oh, I actually had it the other way around, Pete. But happy to share that view. Too many times I just saw our midfield not running. Just not running, just not making position. And the amount of ball that came out scrambled and high out of clearances going into our forward line. Richmond just dropped one in front, and they double teamed out our tools, and it was easy peasy. And it was like watching the grand final on repeat.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you there.
Yeah, you're right about I think the defence did extremely well when you think about the number of times, if you think of it mentally, that they had their mids just streaming unchecked and option after option to give it to. So, and I think they really did save some very good balls in the end.
How do you see it, Don?
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same as Pete with... sorry, not Pete. I think the same with you. As I think the midfield was obviously the ones that let us down. I did really enjoy the effort the backs put in. I did see the fourth quarter of this game, unlike the grand final, so at least we lasted an extra 25 minutes. And I did actually feel like we were in with a sniff at three-quarter time. I actually didn't feel that it was dead. But as those keenly listening to what I say on the cast last week, Richmond are a four-quarter side, and if we didn't play four-quarter footy, it was going to blow us out of the water, and that's exactly what happened. I think what was really obvious is they are a very well-drilled and organised side, and they know where they're going to be running, and they're there for each other, and sort of these weird sort of handballs that go over the back of the shoulder that land in someone's lap. They are the gold standard at the moment, and we are way off of our best. In saying that, I actually thought we'd, even though it wasn't a great effort, I think it was. You put in the game that the Crows played against Richmond last Friday. You put that in against GWS, Fremantle, Port Adelaide, or probably even maybe not Hawthorn, but those guys over the last 6 weeks, and we've got a few more wins on the board. So I think our play has actually improved. Okay, fine. You disagree with me, but I actually think that our play has improved a lot. It's just not up to Richmond level.
Improved, Donkey. I reckon it's the worst. Yes, I reckon it's the worst month of football we've played for 7 years.
We played better against Richmond than we did against Fremantle.
We didn't play very well against Fremantle because they're very low side. We're not playing well at all. But one of the things too is again the selection of the team to have the number of tools that we had in our forward line against a team that's renowned for its run. And the way that it moves the ball out of the back lines, we really did have the wrong mix of players in the forward line.
Well, I think we asked the question last Tuesday. Sorry, Pete, whether we would see the same strategy and the same makeup against Richmond as we saw in the grand final, or whether we would change it up and account for the deficiencies that we had. And what it ended up being is we did exactly the same thing and got the same outcome. We picked a tall forward line. We left out blokes like Lockie Murphy, who was sorely missed. We picked Tommy Lynch, who was clearly underdone. Just no innovation whatsoever.
I think at one stage, weren't the scores in the last quarter at one point remarkably similar to the grand final score?
Oh, I don't
know. They were almost identical.
They were identical at one stage, yeah.
I mean, Donkey, I don't know whether, and I'm not singling you out, mate, but...
single him out. I'm happy with that.
Single him out. I just don't think we played all that well considering, the glaring stat of 67 inside 50s to 45. And people hanging shit on the forward line. I don't think the forwards played very well, particularly... I thought JJ played all right. I thought Tex was really insipid, and our forward line generally lacked system. But
Tex wouldn't catch a cold, let alone the ball.
But Richmond had it. Richmond had it in their forward 50 22 more times. That's not indicative of a side that's playing well, mate.
No.
No. Look, you're marked against who you play, right? And what I'm saying, what I'm saying is, Fremantle were a terrible football side and didn't have two of their best players on the ground, and we still managed to play so badly we went down by a couple of points. But they are terrible. Well, they are actually terrible at football. And they would have got blown off. That side would have got blown off the park by Richmond by a lot more. And what I'm saying is the Crows, even though they're not anywhere near 100%, and I'm not saying they're 100%, I'm saying they're playing better football. I'm actually saying we're improving. Now, whether that's going to be improving enough to do any damage or anything like that, they're different things. But what I'm saying is that we're improving. And I think that you're not taking consideration how good Richmond are as to some of those stats that we've got. Now, I'm not saying we're great or perfect or anything like that, but I'm saying that was a big factor in it. And the other thing I did like, and I'm just going to say this quickly, even though Tex played poorly, there was a few things I saw him do that I haven't seen him do for a while, and that was actually sort of try to take a bit of a run and jump in some packs. I haven't seen him do that too often. I know he pulled one off against West Coast, but I haven't seen him try to be that contested beast for a long time, and I actually enjoyed seeing it, because if he starts to clunk him, then it's a really good thing.
I do understand your point, Maggot, and I do. I think it's a point reasonably made, and because I honestly think that the loss to Fremantle for me was one of the worst losses since inception, and I really mean that, because you have to take into account the standard of the opposition that we had, and I know that it was in Perth, but that would have been one of the worst Freo teams you would have seen, since their inception. And
probably the worst.
And we still had plenty of quality out on the field, and I honestly think that was one of the worst losses in club history. And I don't say that lightly. So I do accept what Magoo says there. I think that, if you take into account that we're playing Richmond at the MCG and we're only 16 points down at three-quarter time, if you look at the cold hard score, then you have to say that that's a better performance than what we saw against Freo. And against Melbourne in Alice Springs. I mean, they were diabolical performances.
Yeah. The difference between the Richmond game and those other games, and I'll concede this to you guys, is we got our share of the ball. Someone's mic is scratching. We got our share of the ball. We matched them reasonably well in contested posies and clearances for most of the game. But our movement and our run was diabolically missing, and it led to just chaos balls going forward. And the amount of times Bryce Gibbs kicked the ball around his bloody shoulder, I lost count. And I felt like our effort kept us in the game at the coalface. I felt like our in and under players, Greenwood, I felt had a decent game. Like Matty Crouch had a good game. Those blokes kept us in around the contest, but our outside run was non-existent. We had no system going forward. So I don't know how you grade that. I mean, yes, we were good around the ball, but we may as well, it was a waste of it. We may as well put 18 behind the ball and played British Bulldog, because it would have been more effective.
Yeah, but we had a non-existent forward line, in the sense that Tex could not mark a ball for the love of money. And
but when are you going to lace Tex out, though? I mean, how many times? Do you remember a couple of years ago we had a bloke called Jared Lyons, Mako, who'd extract the ball out of a contest or get the first give out of a contest, take 5 steps and lace out Tex on the lead?
True.
Like, I mean, as a forward, the contested marking situation is supposed to be the exception. What you're supposed to be able to do is get a one-on-one situation where you can get a metre on your opponent and a bloke hits you on the tit. That's what's supposed to happen. And yet, that didn't happen at all. So I get what people are saying about Tex, but I felt like he was on a hiding to nothing, because at no stage was he actually given the ball to his advantage.
I thought a couple of times he was, but he got it in his hands but couldn't hold it.
Still contested situations, though.
Oh yeah, even admittedly under pressure.
But a player like that, you need him to convert. He can't always have silver service, and you need him to be converting some half chances as well. And he wasn't able to convert any half chances whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with that too. His contested work has been poor for a long time, I believe. But it stuck out to me that we weren't hitting many lead-ups coming into our forward 50.
And that's a fair comment.
Sadly, the only bloke that could take a contested mark was the junior, Fogarty. He took a couple, and I'm not. Well, at least one. I might even exaggerate.
He's taken a couple in his career.
Well, we'll count them all for this week.
The hype around Darcy Fogarty is understandable and reasonable given some of the little cameos that he shows, but he is just being nursed through a season to get some kilometres in him because he does not in any way, shape or form deserve his spot in that side.
I agree with you, but I've got no problem in playing him either. I wouldn't have played him this week because the mix.
No, he shouldn't have played this week.
It was all wrong against the team we were playing against. But in terms of when it's appropriate, I like to see him played because I think he's going to be the next big thing for us eventually. And as you said, quite correctly said, you get him used to the situation, get some miles in him at this level, and it'll bring him on quicker.
Or you burn him out by 23. Or you burn him out by 23 by giving him so many games in his first season.
I wouldn't have given him as many as he's had, but I'm saying you bring him in appropriately in certain weeks.
I think McGovern being out is why he's played 70 games. Firstly,
we've had Benny Davis ready to go up until the last couple of weeks when he's been injured. But Ben Davis,
I also think Fogarty suffers from the same disease Texas got, which is somebody kicks the ball about 2 metres in front of him or about 2 metres over the top of his head. They never seem to go at him. So
we don't seem to be able to kick the ball, even in contested situations. As a midfielder, you should be able to still put the ball to the right side of the contest to give your forward every chance. And I saw balls kicked on top of Darcy's head. I saw balls where he had to actually go backwards into the oncoming traffic. I mean, they don't give the kid a chance, and credit to him. He contests everything.
For sure.
It's fantastic in that regard. But
no doubt.
I'm highly critical of how our midfield have been delivering into the forward lines, and even and you're right, Pete. You don't get silver service every time, but a midfielder should be able to kick the ball to the right side of the pack, and is quite often our forwards don't even get that luxury. So I don't know.
It's not even the ones in congestion that are the ones that are really upsetting. It's the ones where the midfielder's actually got a fair bit of space and he's measured up the kick and they still manage to put it over the back top of their head by 3 metres.
Well, they're elite footballers. They should only need 1 or 2 metres. They're you shouldn't need to be in acres of space like a Rory Atkins. You should be able to get clear, put a couple of steps in, and then deliver. Yeah, that's what they're getting paid the big bucks for, isn't it?
I think that the clue in terms of the failure of the system is, statistically speaking, if you look at the scores and how heavily we scored last year, and if you look at now, we're thinking we've had a pretty good game if we can kick 8 goals. It's our whole route to goal has completely broken down. When
was the last time you saw a slingshot goal from us?
No, it just doesn't happen.
It used to happen all the time, but not now.
We push up and JJ get the Joe the Goose over the back. When was the last time? And I know teams are covering us up behind the ball now, but when have we ever seen that bounce off half back? I mean, we miss Brodie Smith terribly, but that's a structural thing. If you're that reliant on one player, there's a problem.
Yeah. I also think our breakaway from the contest is a structural thing. Like, we're just not in the right positions for other players, and we don't instinctively know where our other guys are going to be when we're doing something.
It's a really good point, Donkey, because where does our first handball out of the pack go? Goes back. Backwards every time. We are never aggressive with the distribution out of congestion. We are always defensive. We always go behind, and it's not usually a quick handball, and by the time that bloke gets the ball, he's got a bloke coming front on at him. Whereas if you distribute to the side of the pack rather than behind the pack, you don't generally have blokes coming front on. You have blokes chasing you, but when you're getting the ball from at the back of the pack, blokes are generally turning and running at you. you can either evade if you're really good, or if you're Bryce Gibbs, you're kicking it over his shoulder, and it just happened time and time and time again. And you're dead set right, Donkey. It's because we are not aggressive with our ball movement, whether it's coaching or whether it's just poor positioning. Either way, it needs to change. It's sticking out like a sore thumb at the moment.
Gentlemen, I'm terribly sorry. I'm to bail. I know that you find this hard to believe, but my 9-year-old son, who promised me faithfully he would put himself to bed, guess what? He hasn't done it.
That's strange.
I know that's
what a
really,
surprise.
really strange.
What's he going to bed? It's bloody school holidays, mate.
Just crazy. He's got commitments first thing in the morning, so I will have to go. So it's been a pleasure as always to chat, and I will leave the final bits of the show to you guys.
One before you go, Peter. Geelong, any chance at all?
Oh, I think we're a good chance against Geelong. I think I don't think Geelong travel particularly well to Adelaide. We've got a pretty good record against them there, and I think that we're playing well enough that we could beat a team like Geelong. I don't think we're ever going to beat Richmond at the G, but I think we're improving enough to be able to think that we are a chance. Again, same as West Coast, not a great chance, but I'll probably tip us again just to sneak over the line.
All right, mate. All the best. We'll see you next week.
Okay, cheers.
Yes, yeah, mate.
And speaking of the Geelong game, we best, I guess, get into that as we hit the hour mark. I'm Rocky. What's going on there? I kicked Pete out of the room, I think. I'm not as bullish as Pete about the game on the weekend. I think, or on Thursday night, I should say. I think we're going to get cooked.
Oh, Geelong aren't that good. I actually think we will. I don't really want us to win the game, but I think we will, because Geelong they don't have a great record at this ground at all, and they have their days where they look like a reasonably good side, but at the moment, if they're going to continue using Dangerfield as they are at the moment, they're turning him into almost just a little part-time player, because he has little bursts in the midfield, then he goes to full forward. If the ball's not going down, if it's up the other end, he's out the game. And then, believe it or not, they actually then rotate him to the bench. I just don't get that. And whereas Abbott's running around there not laying any tackles on anybody at all, just getting an easy ball here and there. And I actually think that they've gone backwards by putting Ablett in their team. And
you reckon they might just be preserving Patrick Dangerfield's career a little bit, Macca, by doing that?
They may well be doing that. I don't know. But to me, it's certainly not maximising Patrick Dangerfield. And people who know a little bit more about footy than me have been talking about this and saying that he is potentially the best midfielder in the game. He's won the Brownlow medal in the midfield. Why would you not put him in the midfield?
Because if you can make finals without putting him in the midfield, then he's a bit fresher, isn't he?
That's if that is their plan, well then maybe that's what it is. But I don't know whether that is their plan or not. It just, to me, just watching them, and I've seen all their games, and they really don't send any shivers up me. I think that if you play a decent, honest, hard-working game against them, they're beatable.
Oh, well, that's us out then, isn't it? What do you reckon, Donkey?
Yeah, I'm in the win camp.
Jesus.
Well, they're not that good. I don't think they're as good as West Coast were. We knocked them off, and as I said, I've seen improvement every week. So I think we're going to have some more again this week. Hopefully, I've done the maths on the ladder predictor. We can afford to lose one more game for the rest of the season. So I'd like to have one up my sleeve. I think beating Geelong is the number one target here, and then get some players back, get some form, roll in the finals, and we'll cook everyone hot.
Wow.
Yeah,
well, I have to. Sorry, go on, Macca.
I was just going to say, I tip us by about 17 points, 23 points, in that range.
I have to apologise to the broader CrowCast listening audience, because we try and get learned, objective opinions on this show, and I feel like I've just let you down in the last 2 minutes with the stuff that's being talked about. Come on, you can't give us a chance. You cannot give us a chance. Come on. It's
against Geelong?
We couldn't beat West Coast at home with them not having a forward line.
Okay.
We did beat them. We won that game.
Yeah, but we did it with a bloody fluky last quarter.
What? No, we found some form.
Yeah, and then we lost it again. We got good
players for continuity. Anyway.
Now, Fiend, let me put it this way. If Geelong had played Richmond last week, do you think they would have won?
I think they would have got closer than we did.
No, they wouldn't. They're not that. You're overrating them to high heaven.
No, I'm not. I think you're overrating our form.
Oh, I don't overrate us.
Because I think at the moment, in terms of where the competition sits, I think we're a bottom 6 team.
No, I think we play better at home, and I think that even if we played at the level that we did against Richmond, I still think that's good enough to beat Geelong, because I don't rate Geelong.
Did you see us play Hawthorn a couple of weeks ago?
Oh, that was terrible.
Did you see us play Fremantle?
And then we had but since then we've had the bye, we've refreshed, we've got players back. We had the mechanism reset press conference. We played a really good, we put in a pretty decent performance against West Coast.
No, we didn't. We played a quarter.
Or I think we played okay, and then we played an exceptional quarter. I think we had really good patches against Richmond, but when we weren't playing well, we played atrociously. But again, that's form and consistency, and I think we're building consistency.
Well, last week, Donkey, I picked us to lose, and I'm honest about what our chances are. I said 45 points. We lost by 47, I think it was. But that was against Richmond, who are a very good side and beat all the rest. I don't believe that Geelong are anywhere in that category.
I've watched a team, granted we beat West Coast a couple of weeks ago, but we did that with kamikaze football. That is not sustainable. It's not a game plan. It's just a tactic. It's a shock tactic, and it happened to work against West Coast, who were down a couple of players.
Three good fun.
I think we backed our ball movement and we moved it really quick.
Donkey, I'm really trying to be objective, because yes, we did back our ball movement, but it looked like we were playing a game that was actually foreign to us. And yes, it started to gel a little bit as the quarter went on, but it was almost Keystone Cops there for the first 5 or 10 minutes of that quarter, and it was good that we persisted and it paid off for us. But If you look at how things sit objectively, even though we were in the game for a while on the scoreboard against Richmond, I think Richmond were in second gear for most of that game. And as I said to you, there was no system out of the contest whatsoever, and we don't have capacity in our forward line to take contested marks. So the fact that we haven't kicked over 10 goals for I don't know how long just shows you that we struggle to put score on the board. Now, Geelong are a high-scoring team, and Tom Hawkins is in a bit of nick, and their midfield is humming along okay. They're a bit light on in defence, but I don't think that's going to hurt them against our forward line. We don't have any X factor at the moment in terms of our ball movement and in terms of our forward line, and I just don't see who's going to sit on Gary Ablett, for example.
Well, I don't know about Ablett, but I'm sure that Gibson will probably come into the side, and I'm sure he's going to sit on Selwood. And
Gibson?
Yep. I reckon he's done this role before, and he does it very well, and I think he'll come there. I think in terms of ruck, I think Sauce would win the ruck. In terms of the midfield, I think we'll at least break even, if not win the midfield. And I don't rate that Geelong is having a powerhouse attack. They do have a very solid defence now. Their defence works very well. So that could be a little bit of a...
just Workman like their defence, I think.
They're not stars, but they're honest. They have a very honest defence. But their attack, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they keep throwing Dangerfield up there, because they don't have a great attack. Unfortunately, Menzel's will probably be back this week, and he is a class individual, I think. But I don't really think that they are. I just don't have any great rating on them at all, and I think that, and it'll come back to whether we have the intensity that's necessary. I mean, I'd like to see our tackles up a lot. I'd like to see our selections made correctly so that we have a lot more movement around on the ground, around the goals, in both defensively and attacking. And I think we can win the game.
So you'd think that Lockie Murphy comes in for Richard Douglas?
Yes, I'd hope so.
Or should I probably say Curtly Hampton? Because there's no way Curtly Hampton can stay in the team after last week's effort.
Hampton should go out. Fogarty should go out.
But let's just cover the will go out. We've got Hampton should go, so you'd expect him to go, and you've got Richie Douglas, who's a forced change. At this stage, Daniel Talia is looking okay. So let's leave him out of the equation a little bit. So you've got those two blokes. You'd imagine that Murphy and Betts, if fit.
Oh yeah, they should both be in. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then you probably, what would you swap Paholke for Gibson, do you think, Macca?
Yep, definitely.
Okay. So your endemic problem remains is that you've injected a tad more speed with Murphy, but he doesn't really play around the ball. And you've still got this slow, cumbersome, top-heavy forward line.
Not really.
You've still got Fogarty. You've got Fogarty.
No, I said Fogarty out. No,
yeah, well, who comes in for Fogarty then?
Well, your ins are going to be at least 3.
Yeah, so that's Betts in for Hampton, Murphy in for Douglas.
Yep. And
Gibson in for Paholke. So who's coming in for Fogarty?
What about Riley Knight?
Maybe. I think he's a test. Knight gives us tenacity, but he doesn't give us pace.
No, but he does give us plenty of tenacity and effort.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, no question about that.
And contest. And I think if you bring those 4 players in, you've got a lot more going for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I don't say it lightly. I mean, I've looked at their side, and I've looked at ours, and I believe we can win the game.
So what about the situation, Donkey, of the fact that we seem to be playing Jake Kelly at the moment so high that he's essentially a wingman? That's not sustainable, is it?
Yeah, probably not.
So does he stay in?
Well, if you've got someone to replace him.
Well, it seems like...
replace him with him?
Well, I don't know, but it seems like he's being forced to play out of position simply through Cheney's inclusion. So, I mean...
maybe they're just trying to get him to get some more touch. I think he's out of touch at the moment, so get him a bit more touch, a few more contests, and maybe get him into some form. Maybe that's what they're trying to do.
But having the plotter on the wing is not helping our outside ball movement, and I think that was one of the key reasons why we didn't move the ball very well against Richmond, is because we had Jake up around the contest. You'd think that there's a case maybe for... forgotten his name. No, I've lost it.
Atkins?
Atkins to come back in.
Yeah, he probably... actually, I overlooked that. He probably will come in.
As much as I hate to say it. Because how can you have... I mean, I know Jake Kelly is a far more solid contributor in the contest, but he's got no pace and he doesn't use the ball at all. So we need someone, and you know, Rory Atkins to be the bottom of my list, but unfortunately it looks like we've just about reached the bottom.
Well, I think we are heading towards it. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and when other players that should be in that sort of role are going down or not performing like Hampton, then it doesn't leave us with much to work with. So,
no, Hampton was a massive disappointment. Massive disappointment. Yeah. I just it was almost unbelievable. It was like he was having an on-field nervous breakdown or something.
Well, there was a real, Sally Thomas moment when he was chasing the ball down to the full pocket in the third quarter, and he just stopped rowing. Just keep rowing, Sally. Keep rowing.
Yeah, it was very much like that, wasn't it? Surely he's either injured or cooked mentally. one of the two.
Yeah, he definitely looked like a shadow of the bloke that I saw playing like round 3 or 4. I thought he always brought a bit and at least some mongrel and aggression around the contest, and he wouldn't let a ball get away from him like that or a contest. And that was probably the single worst effort I reckon I've seen in the Crows colours.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah, it was very bad. But there was a comment there in the chat that he's injured, so he may well have been.
Well, he's not on the injured list, so he's not injured. He's not on the injured list, Macca. He's not even mentioned in dispatches.
Well, I'm only going by the comment there, and as I said, I don't know.
No.
Somebody said he's always injured, but
no mention of him in the injury report whatsoever.
Well, it was an outstanding performance in one respect. It stood out as the worst performance we've seen for a long time.
Look, just to round this up, and you guys can give me your final thoughts as well, but I think we're going to be outgunned in the midfield. I think they've got just too much class. When Mitch Duncan's your third stringer in the midfield, you've got a pretty good bloody batch of players in there.
He's a very good player.
Yeah. I think despite our effort improving over the last couple of weeks, I think we're bereft of confidence. I don't think we're moving the ball anywhere near efficiently. Our forwards are out of touch, and I don't see enough avenues to goal. So I'd actually be surprised if Eddie Betts plays, to be honest, which makes it even worse. So I'm thinking Geelong by about 35 points.
Well, no, I'm stick what I'm saying. I'm saying Adelaide by about 17, somewhere between 17 and 23 points. I'll go for 20 points.
Donkey Magoo.
Whatever you reckon, thanks. So,
don't be silly.
I think you're wrong. I think Geelong do have a good midfield, but I think they've got more of an attacking midfield. I think that's where their strength in what they do is, and I think we struggle against teams that have a really defensive midfield, which is like a Richmond, and they beat us on the rebound. So I still think that we're going to get up by a couple of goals here. I don't know how many it will up, but I think that we are going to be fine. I just don't see those guys as applying the same pressure in the same ways that brought us undone like Richmond seem to be able to do on message.
Admire optimism, gents, and with that, let's move into competition, shall we? Take it away, Mr. Magoo.
All right, so I'm not sure if Corey listens live or whether he's going to be doing the dishes tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon and hearing this, but the fourth placed One Win Wonders, Corey Oltz, has gone down to Donkey's Dreamboats by about 120 points. So that's my first win in about 8 weeks, which puts me 2 clear of Big Crows Bangers, which makes me very happy. We've got the Winter March Peanut. Gets another win, 2-2-5-3. It keeps him in third. Monkey Slappers, you've gone down to Mick Spuds. Newbie Kimber, you've knocked off Dylan FCC, so another late teens like getting up a win there. We've got a few games that don't matter in the middle. Big Crows Bangers gone down to Azza. And then we've got Pete's Pirates losing to Barachos and Could Have Beens losing to Skid Kids. So the ladder then is this. So Wheat Peter in first, Dylan FCC in second, the Winter March, Richie. What was that, mate? Winter March FCC, Winter March in third on 44, and One Win Wonders on 40. We're getting close to the end of the year, so the 8 rounds out with Mick Spuds in 8th, Sanders in 7th, Barachos in 6th, and Could Have Beens FC in 5th, and that'll probably be the 8, I reckon, looking at the way it is. As we go over to tipping, J-Mac on the board tonight. He is still out in front on 94, breathing down his neck very heavily as Morley. He got 8 last week, just pipping J-Mac by 1. He's up to 92. Dom's in third place here. We've got 6 last week, up to 91. B Short with a 7 last week, was pretty good, and he's up to 91 as well. And there's a couple others on 91 with Dan Oz, Mark, and Cellar Dwellers. As we go down to the second half of the ladder in the CrowCast Championship, Donkey Magoo is leading all casters on 81. Peter J coming in second on 79, and Phoenix rounding it out on 73. If Moju wondering where Macca is, he's not in this competition because he refuses to play with us. So that rounds out the competitions.
71st in Australia this week.
What's that for?
In the Dream Team.
We did Dream Team 10 minutes ago. We did tips just then. Where's your tips?
I must have gone to sleep because Donkey was rambling on about...
Come on,
what
Maggot.
You were
Oh.
Now, I promised everyone that I'd do the ladder in time for this Tuesday night, and guess what? I didn't.
Well done.
So I'll get it up as soon as possible and put it on Twitter. I've got about half of the list left to go, so it won't be very long, but I just couldn't get to it today. Oh, what are we going to do? I don't know. What are we going to do? Let's do a team one this
Pressure
week.
action.
No, we've done stuff that. That's a stupid thing. I reckon we're going to do a team one this week. I'm going to ask people to nominate the disparity between inside 50s. So if we get 50 and Geelong get 45, that's a +5. So if you pick in the positive, then you're suggesting that the Crows will get more inside 50s than Geelong. If you pick in the negative, then you're picking Geelong to get more inside 50s than the Crows. Does that make sense?
+12.
So 12 more inside 50s to the Crows, Macca.
Yep.
Donkey?
I'll go with 0.
Even inside 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fence sitting at its finest. Do you reckon we're going to win by, 6 goals with the same inside 50s? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm just clarifying.
Well, no, I'm placing a strategic bet in a game.
What is he saying?
He's saying he's full of it.
Strategy.
-9 for me. Cats will get it in far more than us. So don't forget to get your Game of Crows in on Twitter, Facebook, or the Big Footy thread. And I know I've been saying it for a while. My kids know what this is like. I promise I will get that ladder done. It's about half an hour's left to work, but I just couldn't get it done before we went to air. Macca, you've been mumbling there for the last 10 minutes, so let off a bit of steam, mate, before we go.
That's what I am, and I really don't care who knows it. I don't vote politicians are a joke.
Well, only one sweep this week, and that goes to Duday, because I thought Tom took his game to another level against Richmond. I just thought that it was an outstanding effort by the boy. You know, to think that he had not played league football before this year, and to dominate the defence like he did, loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Now, Macca, I've got to take you to task here, because this is not the segment to do what we do in every other segment, and that's pump up the tyres of one of our players.
Well,
we do that. We do that the whole time. This is the broader AFL thing. You've got one job. You ask for this.
Well, you'll be my third.
You've been giving me sweets for the last month, so I probably deserve a bit of balance up.
No, that's only sweet I got. There's nothing in the competition that makes me happy at the moment. From the point of view of smacks, that's a little bit easier.
All right.
Michael Christian, he deserves a great big one for letting that May creature up at the Gold Coast. He belted that bloke in the guts. He hit him very hard indeed. If that's not a suspension, I've never ever seen one before. And I think it was an absolute
logic after the Tex Walker one, doesn't it? It doesn't make a scrap of sense.
Walker did a tap that didn't even make the bloke even flinch. Wouldn't have bruised a fly if it was sitting on the guy's chest. And yet he tried to give him a game. And yet this is a great big full-blooded punch into the gut when the bloke's not. It's a cowardly attack actually, because it wasn't like face to face. The guy wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely should have been one game to May at least. And big smack to you, Michael Christian, because I think you've actually shown you've really got no idea, and you've let yourself down very badly this year with your inconsistencies.
I reckon he's front runner for the end of season smack at this stage, Macca, wouldn't you think, Michael Christian?
Yeah, he certainly deserves them. And the second one is, a great big smack to the idiot that had come up with this exclusion zone. I just can't stand watching a game of football where two guys, two teams are at each other, flat chat. All of a sudden, some Nancy Ponting thing in white or whatever colour, green, yellow, grey, whatever they're wearing, blows a bloody whistle, and the game stops while they march him up 15 metres because somebody was actually standing near the mark when it was taken, and he's trying to get out the area, but because he's there, 15 metres, I think there's no common sense. Unfortunately, when you come up with these fancy rules like exclusion zones and all these other marvellous bloody rules they were introducing that I don't think is necessary in the game, you're relying on the not the integrity but the common sense of the umpires to be able to administer them, and there is no bloody common sense. Some of their decisions have been absolutely bewildering. So whoever invented the exclusion zone and whoever's telling them to administer it the way they are, definitely a great big kick up the arse for you, mate, because this is a stupid rule.
Just to help the lads get to 700 comments, let's just explore that exclusion zone a bit, because you can't forget, Macca, that the reason that was brought in was because of tactics by teams like Hawthorn, who became very, very good at slowing down the contest just a fraction by having someone strategically placed to the side of the bloke kicking the ball. And I think it's very simple to solve that, though. I looked at the way that they use some of the shepherding and the guy on the mark. All you've got to make sure is that if there is any hint of any interference, then you pay a free kick. Yeah, but the bloke the bloke with the ball, if he's smart, can initiate that interference just by heading in the direction of the bloke that's running through that zone. You've got no choice but to clear it. I think. Yeah, don't you think you've got to clear it?
Do you like what you're watching with this exclusion zone business and marching them up 50 metres and the goals getting kicked? Because
has it actually changed? You've never been allowed to stand in that area. You've never been allowed to stand in that area. All they did was enforce it because blokes like Clarkson were exploiting the lack of officiating. But you've never actually been able to block the guy in front of the mark to the side. You've always had to be out of the zone, 5 metres or 10 metres or whatever it was.
I know that, but they're actually doing it when guys are getting pinged and they have no effect, no interference, no anything on what's going on out there.
Yeah, but all right, I don't disagree with you in principle, but I also think that this harks back to our earlier conversation about making umpiring easier, and I think I would much rather have a black and white rule that is sometimes annoying than have another thing open to interpretation. Do you want an umpire to have to make split-second decisions about whether he was or wasn't interfering? I'm always in favour of black and white. That's why I like the hands in the back rule if it's officiated properly, because it's black and white. Just don't put your hands in his back. You don't get a free. The ones that annoy me out of the protected zone or protected area ones are the ones like Dusty Martin who don't get paid when he's bloody 2 feet away from the guy with the ball. That's what gets me. It's when they're not paid.
Well, that's true too. The other one that just very quickly is the one when I might be going for the ball, I dive for the ball, and you run in, and then you deliberately trip over me, and you get a free. But this really relates to the poor bloke from Sydney that broke his legs at that time when somebody dived in front of him. But from one incident, the whole nature of the game has been destroyed. Everything you've been taught when you're a youngster is to go and get that ball. That's what playing the game is about. And if you get there first and the guy topples over you, it's a free kick to him. That's just absolute bullshit. So the spirit, to me, the spirit of the game is getting badly affected by some of these stupid rules that they're bringing in.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to get any better, mate, because they don't have any awareness of what they're doing. They just keep putting out fires, in my opinion. What do you reckon, Donk?
Yeah, it's a classic situation of introduce the cane toad to kill off the cane worm. So and it just keeps making it worse and worse.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, the boys have got it to 700, which is an excellent effort. So on that note, I reckon we'll say goodnight. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone on the chat. A couple of new faces there, great to see. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at AFL CrowCast, AFLCrowCast.com, and we'll see you on Sunday for the Wrap Show. Good night, guys.
Yeah, good night, guys.